أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We have a lot to cover and we're already running slightly behind in the program. لا بأس inshallah ta'ala. So inshallah ta'ala we're just moving straight in, cutting down the break a little bit and moving straight into the topic of magic and the magician. Again, bear in mind that today is primarily theory-based work. So we're not as much talking about how to perform ruqya for magic as much as we're talking about what magic actually is. So many people, in fact I say so many ruqa, so many raqis don't know what magic is, let alone people who do not have experience in ruqya. So it's very important that you have separate images in your mind. You understand the jinn, you understand magic, you understand the evil eye, and you understand how those three things may come together at times and intermingle, and how magic relates to the jinn and how the jinn relate to magic, and how the jinn may relate to certain cases of the evil eye and may not do so, and how some cases of the evil eye may follow magic or magic may follow them. And so you understand the three separate issues as a knowledge, as a piece of information, and then you understand how they join together within the cases that you will see as a practicing raqi. Okay, we're going to begin bi'idhnillahi ta'ala by looking a little bit at the history of magic. At the history of magic. And for the history of magic, we're going to begin by looking at different geographical areas and what kind of magic they used to have. And the reason is, what I'm going to mention to you now historically is not really questioned. It's well accepted amongst everyone historically. But you're going to see that many Muslims today who claim to be practicing the Sunnah or claim to be Muslim are in fact practicing the same forms of magic that were practiced by these ancient civilizations. So the first civilization that we're going to talk about is Ahlu Babil, the people of Babel. And Babel, of course, or Babylon as it is sometimes translated, is of course a city which is found within what is today Al-Iraq, today in the city of Iraq. And the people of Babylon, they had their own very specific form of magic. One of the things that the people of Babylon were particularly known for is their worship of the 7 stars. So when you're making your notes, you can write down Babylon and you can write down the 7 stars, because you're going to need that later on when we develop how magic developed itself within Islam. So the 7 stars, and they were known as coming close to their gods by 3 particular things. 3 particular things that they would use to come near to their gods in their false worship. One of them was al-abkhira, bukhur. You know, what do you call them? Those like the incense and the sort of smelly things that are burned, and they produce a scented smoke. So anything like this, like incense and scented smoke, they used to use this incense and this scent to come close to their gods that they worshipped, the 7 stars. Of course, the nation was extremely well known for astrology, reading people's futures and so on and so forth in the stars, and through the worship of the stars, and of course magic. Not only did they use smoke and incense, they also used al-uqad, knots. Ancient Babylonian magic was a magic that was based upon knots, upon tying the knots and upon blowing in the knots. Tying in the knots and blowing in the knots. And naffathati fil uqad, as Allah Azza wa Jal mentions. So keep this in mind. They were also well known for sacrificing animals to the stars. Okay? And they were well known for writing about their magic and how they practiced their magic. That's the people of Babylon, the ancient people of Babylon. Now we come to Egypt. Egypt, of course, was well known for It's written magic, hieroglyphics, symbols, talismans, signs. Okay, that was well known in Egyptian magic. Again, historically, it's all there, you can see it. They wrote in hieroglyphics, in symbols, in pictures, they had talismans, and this is how they performed a great amount of their magic. Okay, they were very well known for their priesthood being magicians. The ancient Egyptian priesthood were themselves magicians. And that's well known that every senior magician would likely be a priest in the priesthood of ancient Egypt. We also know that some of the Egyptian kings, of course every king of Egypt is known as Pharaoh, Fir'aun. Some of the pharaohs of Egypt themselves practiced magic. And we know that, of course, Fir'aun and what Fir'aun did with the magicians and the relationship that happened and the events that transpired around Musa and Fir'aun. And of course, this is an evidence of the kind of magic. Now, I want to make something very clear, and this is off the topic, but it's very, very, very important. Some of the brothers, Wallahu al-Musta'an, they struggle to differentiate between two completely different things. One of them is what we call sihru takhyil, magic that involves illusions that happen in the sight. And they struggle between differentiating between this and what we call in Arabic sha'wada. And sha'wada is illusionary magic, as in card tricks and making the penny disappear behind your ear. Okay? Distinguish between the two, ya ikhwan. The magic that was present at the time of Musa was sihru takhyil, deceiving the eyes by using the jinn and using magic to deceive the eyes. Not that the people of Fir'aun played card tricks and they took the coin between their ears and they said, there you go. That wasn't what the people of Fir'aun did. And they have two different words in Arabic, but lil asaf, unfortunately, some of the tullab al-ilm, and Allahul Musta'an, they read some of the fatwa from the ulama and they don't know that Arabic has a different word for takhyil and a different word for sha'wada. Sha'wada is magic that is not actual magic. It doesn't involve the jinn whatsoever. And it is haram. But distinguish between the two, because when they say whoever does sihru takhyil is a kafir, don't make a guy who took a penny from behind his ear a kafir. Distinguish between the two. Sihr that involves illusions and the jinn. Like we were talking about before, we were talking about, what's his name, Dynamo. Qatalahullah. This shaitan, alayhi la'natullahi wal malaikati wal nasi ajma'in. Subhanallah, you can see that what he does is sihru takhyil. It's not pulling a coin behind his ear. He's using the jinn and seeking closeness to the jinn to deceive the eyes. Whereas someone comes with a card trick, we say, akhi, this is haram, make tawbah to Allah Azza wa Jal. But distinguish between the two. We call takhyil, it magic with the jinn that deceives the eyes, and we call sha'wada, moving of the hand, that is quick sleight of the hand that does not involve the jinn. So what was done in ancient magic of Egypt was the deceiving of the eye, using the jinn and using disbelief and using coming close to the shaitan. And that's one of the forms of magic. And it was not the only form, but it's well known that that was what was done at the time of Musa, and they made the snakes, the sticks appear to be snakes, and we know after that what happened to them. Now we come to the ancient nation or civilization of Persia. In the ancient times, the people of Persia originally were upon Tawheed. And there came to them Rustum, who was one of the leaders of the Persians. And Rustum, one of the leaders of the Persians, again he began astrology. He began looking at the stars and determining things regarding the stars. Underline the word stars several times, because when we come down to how sihr works amongst the Muslims, you need to remember these ancient civilizations that use the stars. Because like Ibn Abbas said, they are a people who write abajad and they look at the stars and they have nothing in the hereafter. I don't hold that they have anything in the hereafter. So in a moment we're going to talk about how this relates to modern day sihr that is done today. It still relates to those ancient methodologies. And we know that they had various different things that they did within Persia to do with the stars, and that even though the people were upon Tawheed, later on they changed and they began to be famous for some of these things that we would consider astrology and fortune telling and so on and so forth. Now we come to the time of Islam, and I want you to take a principle. Every single magician who knows about Islam will use the modern magic of the time of Islam rather than the ancient magic. Every magician, Christian, Jew, Hindu, Buddhist, who knows about the existence of Islam will use Islam in their magic. Guaranteed. Yes, you may find an ancient practitioner of magic who just doesn't know anything about Islam, but as soon as they come to know about Islam, they will use what we call the post-Islamic magic, or the magic that came after the coming of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this magic is taken from those ancient civilizations, but it is made stronger, or it is made worse. I don't say stronger because the plot of the shaitan is weak, but it is made worse. It is made more disgraceful by integrating Islam into that magic. How? First of all, by letters, symbols, and talismans. Letters, symbols, and talismans. Just like they were used by the people of Egypt and some of the other nations, these talismans and symbols. But these are based now around what language? Post-Islam, around the Arabic language primarily. Not always, but primarily around the Arabic language. Because those magicians who heard of Islam, they want to use this disgraceful method of disgracing Islam and disgracing the Quran. That's what they want to use in order to give themselves more closeness to the jinn, to make them be able to seek nearness to the jinn in that particular way. So what did they add to these symbols and these signs? They added disgracing the Quran. And every magician who has heard of Islam, every serious practitioner of magic who has heard of Islam, they disgrace the Quran. Even the Hindu, the Buddhist, the Christian, they know the power that they get from the jinn in disgracing the Quran. They disgrace the Quran by using the words of the Quran in their magic, by disgracing the Quran, as we're going to hear in a moment, and we're going to see some examples insha'Allah ta'ala towards the middle of this module of them disgracing the Quran, and some videos of them disgracing the Quran. This magic was taken on by who? Who really took this magic on? The people of innovation. Ya ikhwan, do not be surprised that the major figureheads of the people of innovation, from the Shia, from the Sufis, from all of the misguided groups, all of them without exception use magic. Without exception. From the books of the Sufiyyah, from the Shia, from all of the misguided groups, the heads. I'm not talking about your average Muhammad and Fatima. I'm talking about the heads, the leaders of misguidance. All of them use magic, without exception, from Ahlul Bid'ah. They took on this knowledge, and they are the ones who are propagating this knowledge amongst the Muslim Ummah today. And this magic, in many ways, is much, much more dangerous and much, much more evil than the simple shirk that existed amongst the people of Quraysh before the Prophet ﷺ came to them. So this is the kind of magic which has disgracing the Quran in it. It has using the Quran, making fun of the Quran, using the letters of the Quran, using the letters of the Arabic language. Because the letters of the Arabic language come originally from where? From the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and trying to disgrace it in order to make the jinn curry favor with the jinn and for the jinn to make them closer. So this gives us an introduction or a brief sort of talk about the history of magic amongst the different nations and how all of these were gathered together by modern magic, which of course stemmed from benefiting from disgracing the Quran, and there's no benefit in disgracing the Quran, but in terms of what they attempted to get from the jinn and get closer to the jinn. So now we come to linguistically, what is magic? In general, sihr refers to something which is concealed from the sight. Something which is concealed and it doesn't have an obvious reason for it. You can't see the reason behind it. It's concealed from the sight and it doesn't have an obvious reason behind it. That which is caused by hidden forces. Something caused by hidden forces. In modern terms of sihr, there are many definitions of magic. And like all definitions, each definition comes from a different angle. So in one time they will say that sihr is ruqa and uqad and tama'im. It is a ruqya, words that are said, like incantations that are said, letters, words, batad zahaj wa, they're words that people say. Or uqad, knots that are tied and blown on. Or tama'im, amulets that are made and letters that are written. And what do? They affect the body and they affect the heart and they cause the body to become ill and they can kill and they harm with the permission of Allah Azza wa Jal. But in reality, this definition in general is a definition of some of the types of magic, and it's not a definition of every kind of magic. It's them trying to come close to something that comprises the majority of the kinds of magic. So the majority of magic is ruqa, as in ruqya meaning linguistically, not the ruqya of the Quran, but incantations like reading names and letters. Wa, 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 wa. This is what some of the magicians do. And blowing on uqad. Wa, wa, wa. And blowing on the knots. And tama'im, amulets that they make and they write the names of the shayateen on them. So that is one description. In reality, if we want something that's kind of encompassing and easy to understand, we can say that magic is simply a contract or an agreement which exists between the magician and one or more of the jinn. And as the brother, Allah yahfadhuh, reminded us and informed us about in the previous lecture, we know that the magician offers to perform certain actions and the jinn in return performs certain actions. The magician is terrified of the jinn, and this is the ajab, this is the strangest thing. The jinn are terrified of the magician. You go to the jinn who the magician seeks help from and they say, oh, I'm so scared, he will hurt me, he will harm me, he's powerful. You go to the magician, he says, I'm so scared of the jinn. Look how Allah Azza wa Jal caused them to attack each other. How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused them to fear each other instead of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The jinn, they fear the magician, and the magician, he fears the jinn. Allahu Akbar. Subhanallah. So a contract between the magician and between one or more of the jinn. I'll do something for you, you'll do something for me. And I want you guys to make a note. As a principle, no magic happens without making an offering, let's say, without making an offering to the jinn. There is no magic that happens, it doesn't exist, except that it includes an offering to the jinn. I will make an offering, a sacrifice, a letter, a word, an action, a sajda. Whatever it may be, it is any kind of offering that is made to the jinn, and that offering, in return for it, the jinn agree to do certain actions. And as the brother Hafidhahullah, he said that the jinn, they send their foot soldiers out and they send their workers out to take part or to enforce that contract. Let us look, ya ikhwan, at magic in the light of the Quran. And I want you to look at 5 things. And these 5 things, I want you to take them from one ayah. And this is ayah number 102 in Surah Al-Baqarah. وَاتَّبَعُوا مَا تَتْلُو الشَّيَاطِينُ عَلَى مُلْكِ سُلَيْمَانَ وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانَ وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا يُعَلِّمُونَ النَّاسَ السِّحْرَ. We take this piece by piece. They followed instead what the devils recited during the reign of Sulaiman. It was not Sulaiman who disbelieved, but the shayateen disbelieved. يُعَلِّمُونَ النَّاسَ السِّحْرَ, teaching the people magic. وَمَا أُنزِلَ عَلَى الْمَلَكَيْنِ بِبَابِلِ, and what was revealed to the two angels at Babil, Harut wa Marut. وَمَا يُعَلِّمَانِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ حَتَّى يَقُولَا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةٌ فَلَا تَكْفُرْ. And they don't teach anyone, or they didn't teach anyone until they say, we are only a trial for you, so do not disbelieve. We are only a trial for you, so do not disbelieve. وَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ, what do they learn? What do they learn from them? What do they learn? يَتَعَلَّمُونَ مِنْهُ مَا يُفَرِّقُونَ بِهِ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَزَوْجِهِ. They learn by that which they separate between husband and wife. وَمَا هُمْ بِضَارِّينَ بِهِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. And they cannot harm anyone except with the permission of Allah. وَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مَا يَضُرُّهُمْ وَلَا يَنْفَعُهُمْ. And they learn that which harms them and it does not benefit them. And they know what? وَلَقَدْ عَلِمُوا لَمَنِ اشْتَرَاهُ مَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنْ خَلَاقٍ. The one who bought it, he purchased this magic, he's not going to have anything in the hereafter. وَلَبِئْسَ مَا شَرَوْا بِهِ أَنفُسَهُمْ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ. How evil is the thing that they sold themselves for if they only knew. 5 points. Point number 1. Magic is something that can be learnt. عِلْمٌ يُتَعَلَّمْ. It is a knowledge that is learnt. You are not born like Harry Potter with a wizard wand in your hand and today I realized I was a wizard. Magic is something that you learn. You have to go out and learn it. It's an ilm, but it's an ilm that brings you nothing but evil. But it's an ilm. How do we know it's an ilm? وَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ. They learn. They learn. They go and they learn this ilm. So it's not a natural born circumstance that you have the ability to practice magic. It's something you learn. Point number 2. Magic is an act of disbelief. وَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مَا يَضُرُّهُمْ وَلَا يَنْفَعُهُم. They learn what harms them and it does not benefit them. وَلَقَدْ عَلِمُوا لَمَنِ اشْتَرَاهُ مَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنْ خَلَاقٍ. And the one who purchases it knows he's not going to have anything at all in the hereafter. Every single form of magic is kufr. If it involves seeking help from the jinn, if it is standard magic, we're not talking about magic of, like, oh, he's got a magical voice or he's got a magical speech. Inna min al-bayani la sihra. That from some people when they give speeches, their speech is like magic. Not this magic, but real magic that we're talking about today. This magic, there is no such thing except that it is kufr. Magic causes real harm. What did they learn from them? مَا يُفَرِّقُونَ بِهِ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَزَوْجِهِ. They learned that which split between husband and wife. So magic splits and it brings people together. And it causes people to love and it causes people to hate. And it kills people. And it causes people to be barren and not have children. And it causes people to do actions that they would not normally do. And it drives people to insanity. It is real. It is not like the Mu'tazila and some of the misguided groups said that magic is just takhyil. It's just imagination. It just happens to your eye. Magic kills and magic breaks up families and magic destroys people. وَمَا هُمْ بِضَارِّينَ بِهِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. There is no harm except with the permission of Allah Azza wa Jal. Refer back to what we said about qadr. Why would Allah give permission for harm to happen? For a wisdom that He subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to achieve from that harm. He wants to test you. He wants to forgive you. He wants to wipe out your sins. He wants to make you turn back to the Quran. He wants you to recognize your need of Him. He wants to punish those shayateen with the recitation of the Quran. He wants the truth to be shown from the falsehood and the wisdoms that we don't know of. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Hakim, is the one who is the all-wise. And the 5th point, there is no good magic. There is no white magic. There is no magic that heals. There is no magic that benefits. وَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مَا يَضُرُّهُمْ وَلَا يَنْفَعُهُمْ. They learn that which harms them and it never ever benefits them in anything. So there is no such thing as magic which benefits in any way. There are other things that we mentioned in terms of the history. We talked about Fir'aun, and this of course is part of what is mentioned in the Quran about magic. وَقَالَ فِرْعَوْنُ ائْتُونِي بِكُلِّ سَاحِرٍ عَلِيمٍ. Fir'aun said, bring me every learned magician. Sahir, alim, because magic is a knowledge that is learnt. فَلَمَّا جَاءَ السَّحَرَةُ قَالَ لَهُم مُوسَى أَلْقُوا مَا أَنْتُمْ مُلْقُونَ. When the magicians came, Musa said, throw what you're going to throw. And this is from the permissible means of fighting the magicians, that you bring the people together all in one go. And what do you say? You bring the people together and you say, come on, do your magic that you're going to do. And I'm going to disgrace you in front of the people. And I'm going to give you two stories of this. And I'm not going to narrate whose stories they are because the person asked me not to narrate them. But they didn't happen to me and they didn't happen to anyone in this room. In one, a brother, one of the shuyukh, he went to Southeast Asia. And there was a man who was claiming to be one of the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, I'm a wali of Allah. What did we say about Ahlul Bid'ah? That they are the ones who carry the magic, the flag of magic in this ummah. He said, I am a wali from the awliya of Allah. What did he used to do? The people would come to him and he would flick his hand and they would fall over. And they would come with swords and knives and sticks and they would try to beat the wali over the head, and the wali would simply stand and this person would fall down like a stone on the floor. The sheikh, he came and he said, I want to have a go. I want to take something, I'm going to have a go. They said, you can't do it. This wali, you don't have the iman. His iman is so strong and his belief in Allah Azza wa Jal is so strong, you can't touch him. But here there's a small child. If you can hit him, then we'll talk. So he said, do you want a sword or a knife or a stick? He said, I don't want a sword and I don't want a knife, I don't want a stick. I have my own weapon. He said, go, do it. Whatever you have, gun, knife, whatever you have with you, you do what you can. So he went up to him and he said, أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق. And he fell flat down. By saying, I seek refuge with the perfect words of Allah from the evil that He created. Blew at him, fell down in front of all the people. He said, I told you he's just a baby. Now we'll bring you, you come and see the real wali, we'll see how strong you are. And no problem. He said, line up you and all of your friends. We saw this on video. Line up you and all of your friends, one by one by one. And he went through them one by one. All of them flew down as though they had been struck by a heavy hammer. Bang, on the floor. This is Kalimatullah Tammat, the perfect words of Allah, the names and attributes of Allah, the aqeedah of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah that protects the person and destroys the plots of the shaitan. Another story, that there was a man in Africa, and again he was in Africa, and there was a magician who was doing his magic. So he said, come on, let's go to him. And they gathered this magician together in front of all of the people when the magician was doing his magic in front of everybody, in front of all of the people. And the magician, he was doing his thing and his levitation and all the things that he was doing. And then one of the brothers, one of the students, he simply took his hands to his ears and he began to recite the adhan. Flat on the floor, rolls over like he's been struck by a giant fist. Because all of the shaitan run away when they hear the adhan. So this is the example, following the example of Musa. So Musa said, Alqu ma antum mulqun. Put whatever you're going to put. Do whatever you're going to do. You're not going to harm me. Say, I have, inna ma'iya rabbi sayahdeen. I have my Lord with me, He will guide me. You're not going to harm me.